When it comes to Universal theme parks, most people tend to think first of their iconic and immersive lands, especially those based around intellectual properties like Harry Potter, as after all, these are one of their biggest investments into the park and are one of the main things that helped put them on the map for many. But while the wizarding world of Harry Potter is their most noticeable one and breakout star when it came to their immersive intellectual property lands, it really helped start a domino effect of more of them coming into the park. It's not the first one, and as we can see, there's been several iterations of iconic intellectual property lands spread around the Universal parks worldwide. As a result, I wanted to take the time to break down and talk about the immersive lands offered at Universal Orlando and how they have grown and evolved over time, and how, while sometimes they are a great addition to a park, other times going a fully immersive route isn't necessarily the best move. In this third episode of the Park Mind podcast. And for those wondering who I am someone who has a love and passion for the themed entertainment space, but also have studied and understand the business side of it as well, being an analyst for my full-time job. When it comes to the immersive lands at Universal Orlando, their first lands didn't initially start with any intellectual property, as well they still had some in the form of the rides that are located inside of some of those lands. Its main draw was more the thematic beauty of the lands, providing a more general theme, and this was the overall fit for a majority of the theme parks when they first started. As well, they still were very impressive with their own unique themes and some iconic ones, like Disney coming up with Adventureland, as well as Universal having several iconic areas of their own not based around one iconic property, like the New York section of the park, as well as some other ones like a World Expo area. Universal really didn't get the ball rolling into what an immersive land could be based around one individual and iconic property until it came to Islands of Adventure, their brand new theme park they're opening up next door. And when it came to why Universal would want to do this, is that they saw the draw and power that some of their more iconic intellectual properties could hold, and by building its own land based around it, you were able to better help maximize the profits and draw of the offerings from that property in its parks. In addition to this, having this layout for Islands of Adventure, which saw several iconic lands that were all immersive but overlooked one massive lagoon, was a great way to really make their next park stand out when it came to what studios offered, providing its own unique offering and experience that was worth the draw and visit alone. A strategy that they would eventually evolve even farther down the road with Epic Universe. But before we get to that, let's break down some of Islands of Adventure's lands when it opened back in 1999. When it came to this park, the first option that guests are exited into after going through the turnstiles is Port of Entry, a unique and original land that Universal Creative developed, a really immersive and beautiful land in its own right. However, for the sake of this video, we will mostly skip through it, as well it does have several beautiful areas, and it is really immersive in its own area. It's not based around an intellectual property. Unlike this land, the rest of the lands over at Islands of Adventure are, and it is a great way to really help draw and wow guests and encourage them to go and check out the resort to immerse themselves into those iconic properties. After exiting Port of Entry, guests are left with two options. These are to either go to Marvel Superhero Island if they were to turn left, or go right and into Suess Landing, which for the sake of this video, we will be doing. Here, after entering Suess Landing, guests will immerse themselves into the iconic and nostalgic worlds of Dr. Seuss. This is something that continues to be popular today amongst kids, as well as nostalgic for those that grew up on the books, a never-ending cycle that continues today with the next generation of learners continuing to read upon these iconic and classic children's books. While these books do provide a vast variety for Universal Creative to go tell and make their own land based around them, I think it was ultimately that nostalgia as well as evergreen era of the books that really led Universal to have them as a permanent offering at the Orlando resort and to really try super hard in negotiations to impress Audrey Geisel when it came to the pitch for Suess Landing, including building a mock replica of some of the future bits of the land to really give an idea of what the full land could be. And for those wondering who Audrey Geisel was, she was the widow to the Dr. Seuss, or his actual name, Theodore Suess Geisel. And when it came to implementing this into the theme parks, she was really skeptical about these intellectual properties, as well she did want to really expand the name and influence of these books. At the same time, she didn't want to ruin the legacy that her husband made. And through these efforts, Universal was able to really impress her and give a sense of just how much effort and care Universal was about to put in to this land as well as the rest of them. After entering through the gates of Suess Landing, guests will immerse themselves into a land that is more of a mashup of several iconic areas of the books as well as different books as a whole, but all still hold the iconic and nostalgic vibe and feeling of the Dr. Seuss books. And while they are designed for children, and it was this land with children being the main focus, providing a lot of smaller flat rides and other offerings that provide great kinetic energy as well as a lower height requirement, the overall land does a great job of not only providing kids a way to play and express themselves, but also done so in a way to really provide a beautiful and immersive land in the process. In addition to this land was anchored by a Cat in the Hat dark ride, a ride that, while for $19.99 looked great at the time, is still a fun dark ride, although it definitely needs a lot more love and care over the years and is to the point where it either needs a major refurbishment and update with today's modern technology or a complete gutting or demolition of the building. And I kind of wish Universal would go for the latter, really expanding upon this ride's footprint into its nearby areas, which are often underutilized for the most part of the year, as well as an expansion plot located right next door to this ride. As for what this expansion point could be, I would love to see a more family-oriented kid coaster coming to the resort, a way which both kids and more adults could enjoy it, with this being based around the Grinch and an iconic Mount Crumpet, providing guests a beautiful Mount Crumpet roller coaster, something which Universal could even do a sled-based coaster, providing them another coaster for Islands of Adventure's impressive coaster lineup, but also doing a unique coaster style that has not yet been done at the resort. But while we don't unfortunately have that Mount Crumpet based roller coaster today, the land still does celebrate Grinchmas as a whole every season when it comes to the winter months of the year, with Universal providing a great excuse to really emphasize that iconic and nostalgic Grinch-based offering, something that has even grown exponentially, with people falling in love with the Grinch and Universal also really going out of their way to make Suess Landing feel extra special during this time of the year, and is when the land really shines with extra walk-around characters, including several Who's from Whoville's roaming around the streets, a show based around the story of the Grinch, as well as an iconic Grinch meet and greet, where Universal takes the time to provide a live-action Grinch meet and greet, a one that is based around a face-based character that can fully interact and talk with you, providing several iconic moments for park fans, hour-long waits, which is great for Universal to help get some of the people off the streets and into some lines of their own, as well as an iconic and great marketing team led behind it to really bring that true emphasis that it brings today, as well as some great marketing and viral moments that provide some free marketing for the resort. However, when going back to the land the majority of the time of the year, while it is great at certain times, overall the most of it is still a fun and enjoyable land, but not something that I think of and think, wow, that was fantastic, I want to go do it again, but still a good land to where I enjoy it overall. It is a beautiful land to walk through and to see what it's like to step foot into the pages of the Dr. Seuss books. Intellectual properties like this and other ones, while a great way to really help attract as well as get eyes onto a project and bring over some of its fans, especially if done right, is not always the best move financially, as licensing an intellectual property can be extremely pricey, especially if the IP isn't something that you create yourself and rather have to license from a third party. A problem that also comes with its own fee as well, like we'll talk about down the road was The Simpsons and Marvel, something that thankfully does not have a problem with Islands of Adventure, but did see an issue with it over at Universal Studios Japan, in which the main ride had to close after 20 years despite still being profitable. But we will talk about that more later on. To help balance out some of those external and pricey licensing deals that Universal made with third parties, Universal built the Lost Continent, a great and unique land coming to the resort that would likely still be popular regardless of the theme, as well as provide Universal some iconic properties that guests would know, like the iconic myths and legends of characters like Poseidon, in which guests would immerse themselves into this more ancient baseland, providing several iconic areas of the Greek mythology, as well as immersing guests into several different and unique style attractions to really provide that great blend and mix between them, but still being each drawing in their own right, which is being a stunt show based off of the legends of Sinbad, a walkthrough experience that has seen some variations over the years with Poseidon's Fury, providing some unique and great aspects when it came to a walkthrough in combination with a special effects show, a massive dueling roller coaster in which fans got to experience the world of Merlin and what it's like to ride on a dragon, as well as a smaller roller coaster for the kids, with this being the Flying Unicorn, in which the unicorn's horn gave guests the ability to fly on a much smaller scale track, but still enjoyable and thrilling, even for adults, as you're simply too big for that seat. They still let you ride, to the point where you're holding onto the handlebar and genuinely screaming your heart out because you have no clue if you'll make it back to the station. Universal, please add a height maximum for this ride. When it came to the longevity of this land though, its fate was very, very murky, and saw several parts of it close and still are closed and being abandoned in the land itself, as well as parts of the land as a whole being permanently closed and rethemed and repurposed into the wizarding world of Harry Potter, with several areas of the buildings being themed into Hogsmeade, and one of its main draws, Dueling Dragon, getting rethemed and repurposed into the wizarding world of Harry Potter in the form of Dragon Challenge, a very unique and beautiful retheme, but we'll talk about that more in the repurposing of the land down the road. But before we get to that, I would like to first focus more when it came to the Lost Continent's downfall and how it led to a miserable state of the current remaining portion of the land, in which its only attraction is a talking fountain. And while enjoyable and really funny, it is a complete mess and waste of space in Islands of Adventure today, while architecturally beautiful. The first major attraction at the land that is still closed today without a replacement is the Ace Voyage of Sinbad, a stunt show that while I never saw in person, it looked really impressive, at least for some scenes, and could still see the beautiful set that the stunts were portrayed in at times, with that stadium sometimes being used for the extended queue for Hagrid's Magical Creature Motorbike Adventure. Going back to the stunt show, while this show was impressive for several aspects, over time, it was less well received by guests. In ending a 19-year run, the show would be closed in 2018 as a result of the low attendance and ratings, as well as the high operational cost for the attraction, with the show consisting of several inexpensive, complex, and pyrotechnic heavy moments, and it was also extremely expensive to maintain over time, as well as the rising cost of stunt performers over the years. That said, stunt shows at the resort are not entirely dead in the water, at least not yet. You see, there are still signs that they can very well succeed, like Waterworld, an iconic show located at several Universal resorts around the world, except for Orlando, and Orlando having the Bourne Stunt Spectacular, a beautiful stunt show over at Universal Studios Florida that really provides that more modern day test to what a stunt show can be. Unfortunately though, even this is now starting to see signs of lower attendance numbers, with Universal providing several newer initiatives to really help drive guests into the door. Although I think it's less of the stunt show being bad, but more so the hard effort to really emphasize the value of a stunt show to day guests and get them into the door. But once they do that, they really have that memorable experience and encourages them to go back. And especially with Universal also hitting gold with their 2 new shows, one based around the wizarding world of Harry Potter, and the other based around How to Train the Dragon in their brand new theme park, Epic Universe, that just opened last year in May of 2025. We'll talk about those more down the road. As for the Lost Continent, I think a new show is ultimately unlikely, if not basically impossible at this point, due to the upgrades that would be required to bring it up to code, as well as to the more modern times and what guests expect. In addition to this, when it comes to the long-term plans of the Lost Continent, Universal has shown signs and permits that they plan to demolish parts of the land as well as replace it as a whole. As well, an exact closing date has not yet been announced. Its closure at this point is pretty much confirmed, especially when you consider there's no more open attractions at the resort other than the previously mentioned Talking Fountain meet and greet. As for more actual rides and attractions at the remaining portion of the Lost Continent, the other one that has also since permanently closed is Poseidon's Fury, a beautiful walkthrough attraction that provides some really impressive moments to it, including a water tunnel in which guests get to walk through an exciting climatic battle in which guests get to witness Poseidon battle against his enemy in an exciting water and fire stunt spectacular that would portray with several special effects in the main action scenes being held on screens behind these water effects and the overall physical environments of the stage, ending in an impressive moment in which a wall suddenly appears before you, transporting you back into the Lost Continent. Unfortunately though, while this show was really impressive, due to the walkthrough nature, most fans were unlikely or unwilling to go experience it at the resort. In addition to this, it also had really high operational costs. And to be honest, while the show had some great impressive moments to it, the majority of it was kind of unimpressive and overall boring. As a result of these factors, Universal eventually decided to close the attraction. However, I think they ultimately closed the attraction a little prematurely than they were planning on it, with the show going through some massive refurbishment for a good period of time before it reopened for its final little bit of run, where Universal decided whatever problems it likely had causing that massive refurbishment to several of its equipment areas was too high of a cost to continue to run and operate for the closing days of the Lost Continent, leaving the Lost Continent without any major attractions for its final couple of years. Overall, this land, while beautiful, is really a shell of its former self, and it is not really worth the time or visit other than just walking through and admiring the impressive architecture and wild moments of some of the facades, like the temple one for Poseidon's Fury, which still lives on today, including its water effects, despite the walkthrough attraction inside of the building being permanently closed. Moving on to Universal's next island here, we have Jurassic Park, a massive expansion that really saw the benefit of what a land can bring to a theme park, as previous plans saw the River Adventure ride coming to Universal Studios Florida instead, but eventually plans were shifted instead of it taking over the now Men in Black alien attack plot of land to build it as this more standalone land to anchor its big new theme park located right next door. And here it really did see the benefit of space, providing Universal more opportunities to immerse guests into the franchise and provide several iconic areas of it that guests wish to go and explore that you simply could not get with just a ride. For example, with this bigger plot of land, Universal was able to build the Discovery Center as well as several dinosaur meet and greets. In addition to this, there's also several iconic photo areas as well as some dining options as well. Likewise, this land wasn't just river adventure anymore when it came to the land at Islands of Adventure, but rather a full-fledged land with several smaller offerings to really provide that great balance between the thrilling and smaller offerings for the children. For instance, you had the thrilling log flume style ride taking over the main e-ticket for the park, as well as a massive playground that was extremely well themed and a great space for kids to go run around and play, as well as explore several unique areas like the Amber Mines. Furthermore, if they want to, they can go and watch a dinosaur being hatched in the Discovery Center. And if you want a much bigger dinosaur, you can, which is Triceratops Encounter, a massive animatronic dinosaur that really brought the Triceratops to life in an extremely realistic way. However, unlike the rest of the land that still lives on today, this attraction did unfortunately end up closing down the road due to the overall decreased wait times as time went on, as well as extreme complexity and costs to keep this animatronic figure maintained. It was ultimately abandoned for a couple of years before the plot of Land was scrapped in favor of the Velocicoaster, a extremely thrilling and modern take on the Jurassic Park franchise, bringing the newer films of Jurassic World into the land with their own smaller section of the land. But when it came to the Jurassic Park property as a whole, it still finds a massive presence for the land overall, and in fact, Universal is now doubling down on the ride with it seeing a massive $19.2 million refurbishment, and really shows Universal's desire to have more of those nostalgic offerings into its park, as well as give guests the opportunity to go and see dinosaurs up close, both of which are a massive draw. And for more on why Universal is keeping this theme for the River Adventure ride, you can see our other recent podcast episode, breaking it all down. But nostalgia isn't just the main reason why Universal built Jurassic Park and gave it its own land at Islands of Adventure, as outside of this, the property itself is extremely profitable and popular, and likely Universal would also want to help diminish the extreme cost of the licensed characters and properties that made up the rest of the resort. And Jurassic Park was a great way to do this, for that wow and awe-inspiring factors when it came to a perfect land and theme for it at Islands of Adventure. The next immersive land here is Toon Lagoon, a comic book inspired land that was based around several iconic and older style comic books and made up of mostly water based offerings, including two major water rides at the park, one being another log flume style ride and the other being a raft ride based around Popeyes, one of the best raft rides ever made at a theme park. And if you want more detail on that, I have a whole video here breaking it down. But the reason why I bring this up is because Toon Lagoon was designed in a way where it didn't matter what the IP was, as the main goal of this land was not really about its intellectual property. As well as still a great and nostalgic based offerings, its main goal was to sell those tickets to the park on those hot summer days, as guests would want to cool off with some of those water based rides, especially when you consider the park next door doesn't have any water based rides at all, and guests are often left really hot and humid, especially in the days during the summer. Taking a step back from how this land was just designed for those water-based aspects to it, the land itself is still an enjoyable and comic-based area with several water-based offerings, but at the end of the day, when I think of Toon Lagoon, that's mainly it, a place to cool off on those hot days. And while it is a fun land to walk through, ultimately it doesn't have much draw outside of this, and it is kind of hurting in those winter months where you don't really want to get wet, and the land doesn't really offer much outside of just some characters roaming the streets during those colder periods of the years, but the land is worth it during those hot summer months. It is definitely a good investment for Universal to make at Islands of Adventure. Keeping that nostalgic comic book vibes of the land, Universal chose to partner with Marvel, who at the time was about to go bankrupt, and was a great second opportunity when the original plans for having a DC-based land fell through. In addition to this, due to Marvel's current state at the time, they were able to score a really good deal in which they were able to use the characters and properties inside of the land, giving them not only unique and exclusive access to them to the east of the Mississippi River, but also having a contract deal that was done in perpetuity, meaning that Universal could keep the characters at the resort as long as the land itself stayed alive and well. Where the land really shines is its rides and offerings, consisting of 4 rides and 2 of them being major e-ticket ones. The first of these rides was the Incredible Hulk roller coaster, extremely fun and thrilling addition to Islands of Adventure's lineup, and has even seen updates over the years, as when it needed to get retracked, it saw a bunch of love and care to really help make it continue to stand out in the modern era of theme parks and improve some of its existing technology behind it and the overall vibe of the queue. The second of these rides that also saw updates over the years was The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man, an extremely fun and thrilling ride in which you're immersed inside of a dark ride based format that's also a combination of a simulator based attraction, exploring several iconic physical areas and sets of the world of Spider-Man while facing off with some of its most fierce villains in several scenes in which the screens blend perfectly into the real world. As for the other rides, you'll find a more simple flat-based spinner style ride that, while still fun and enjoyable, is a great addition to really help alleviate some of the crowds. As while it's not the best ride, it's still a perfect addition to a park to really help balance out those higher and lower wait times, as well as provide more offerings for guests to go and explore and enjoy. As for the last ride in this land of the park, you'll find Dr. Doom's Fair Fall, a beautiful themed queue and experience leading up to a drop tower style ride attraction. And while the queue itself is done extremely well, the actual ride itself is relatively underwhelming, consisting of you just being shot up into the air before plummeting back down. And I wish Universal would spend the time and money to have made it extremely beautiful and impactful like Disney did with the Tower of Terror, instead of just having the actual drop tower portion of the ride experience being like a ride that you can find at your local amusement park. Although I would give Universal slightly more slack here, as when it came to the scale of Islands of Adventure, it was definitely an expensive undertaking, but it is just a shame that they cut some corners here at the end, but ultimately it does kind of make sense, and I'm glad that we at least got some form of the ride. Overall, as part of a bigger land, Marvel's Superhero Island was a great way to help immerse guests and provide them a great land to walk through with several iconic rides to go enjoy and explore. But ultimately was kind of losing that immersive aspect of a land, as it was more than just a collection of different Marvel-based properties, and land that was well themed wasn't as immersive as their future lands would be. After Islands of Adventure's early success, Universal really wanted to eventually challenge themselves and bring more draw back to the park. But how do they do this? And how do they bring some more iconic properties into a way that guests don't just walk through, but truly live a full experience? And to that, they came up with the Wizarding World of Harry Potter and Hogsmeade, an ideal that was initially just exclusive for Universal to use the characters inside of their theme parks. Although that deal has since been changed over time, with some other companies now being able to build Harry Potter based attractions and lands inside of their theme parks. But ultimately, it comes down to the execution of them, as well as some who may be handed the keys to this golden intellectual property. If a franchise isn't done justice or executed extremely well, it can often fall through, as seen with smaller based experiences like those based around Harry Potter in Chicago that were done extremely poorly, and the company ultimately ended up going bankrupt. Thankfully though, Universal didn't decide to go on the cheap end when it came to Harry Potter, but really doubled down into what an immersive land could be, with the Wizarding World of Harry Potter being a perfect blend between the immersive lands of walking through it and truly living the moment, providing wands, something that would be eventually improved down the road, with the initial wands just being more collectible items, but eventually being adapted into fully immersive, interactive mini games spread around the whole resort, as well as providing several iconic food and beverage lineups to the land, as well as several other offerings as well that fans of the franchise have been really craving for. Like, what is it like to finally taste better beer and imagine doing so into the world of Hogsmeade, as well as coming face to face with several iconic areas of the franchise, with the Orlando resort now being the biggest of all the resorts as a whole when it comes to the Harry Potter based offerings, with it allowing guests to explore the worlds of Hogsmeade, Hogwarts Castle, the Forbidden Forest, Diagon Alley, Nocturne Alley, the Hogwarts Express, and the Ministry of Magic. But all of these future additions wouldn't have been possible if it were not for the first land being that massive success, a land that started with the wizarding world of Harry Potter, Hogsmeade, a land that took over part of the former Lost Continent, seeing several other buildings and infrastructure being rethemed into the Hogsmeade's buildings and streets. In addition to this land was also expanded upon with an expansion plot, bringing the Forbidden Journey race ride in that area of the park into the park's lineup, changing the initial plans for a Jurassic Park inspired helicopter ride. Signs how Universal was really trying to show and elevate into the different intellectual properties of the theme park, as well as provide new and better experiences to them. As why just have a helicopter-like simulator ride when you can build a similar ride that is also a dark ride hybrid in which you are flying through the sets in the world of Harry Potter. Due to this combination of efforts and creative power, as well as being given the budget to really explore what a theme park land could be, Universal not only had massive success, but did so in a way that helped provide great benefits for fans of the franchise to go and explore new revenue streams like the wands, something we'll talk about more in a little bit, as well as the overall offerings like butterbeer, showing the true power that immersive and iconic beverages can have in the space that they serve into the theme park space, unlocking a new form of revenue and something that Universal now continues to go back on and even reinvent some of their older lineup of attractions and offerings to help include some more iconic beverages as well. Like Suess Landing also saw a recent overview of one of the restaurants to bring more thematic and beautifully tied in offerings to that restaurant to really help the food not only be better, but also photogenic when it comes to promoting the food at the resort, as well as giving guests another reason to go and order that food there and stay on property. Following the success of the Wizarding World, Universal decided to try and strike fire once again by expanding upon the Simpsons ride, which opened in 2008, and bringing it into a more full-fleshed out land, which opened back in 2013. Here, we saw the performer ride be expanded upon, with more theming and based Simpsons elements to really bring the town of Springfield to help make the simulator feel like it belonged in that section of the park. While this land was still a really good reuse of some of the existing infrastructure at the park to build a more cohesive land that really immerses us into the franchise and gives them more opportunities to enjoy it as well, like hanging out and enjoying some Duff beer or exploring other popular areas of the franchise, it ultimately felt a little cheap in comparison to what Universal pulled off with the Wizarding World. In addition to this, unlike the fully immersive lands of Islands of Adventure and the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, which are mostly contained within one sightline, with only having minimal spots overlooking a bigger lagoon or portion of it, the Simpsons land was built right next to the existing lake over at Universal Studios Florida, having half the land basically overlook this area of the park and make the Simpsons felt more like a set. Having this direct collision of different themes, as well as only having part of the land themed to overlook a section that is not themed entirely, made it feel like a less immersive option when it came to the park. However, it was still an impressive and nice way to improve upon the existing ride and infrastructure in the area. But how do you get around this problem when it comes to the Wizarding World and Universal bringing it over to this same park as well, this time bringing Diagon Alley as well as some of its other iconic areas from the franchise to help tie it all in, including the Gringotts Bank, which will be home to the major e-ticket ride of it, Nocturne Alley, and even connecting the two lands with the Hogwarts Express. To do this, Universal kind of built two lands instead of one, allowing more separation of themes, as well as providing that perfect blend into the Studios Park, but then giving guests the option to be fully immersed into Diagon Alley, with the London backdrops and street facades providing a nice berm between the two areas of the park. But when it came to Diagon Alley, which opened in 2014 along with the other London section of the park, which replaced one massive ride in the form of Jaws, which I do feel like is the best choice to really give Universal the most bang for the buck, as well as provide the space to bring those immersive lands, which do unfortunately take up a lot of space, even though they are a great option It is one of the main reasons why most parks opt for a ride instead for some of their popular intellectual properties. It is why not every section of a theme park is made up of those extremely immersive lands. When it came to what Diagon Alley contained, it was a really beautiful and elegant expansion on the atmosphere of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. And I say atmosphere because ultimately when I think of Diagon Alley, it is next door Nocturne Alley section. It really is a bunch of shopping and dining experiences to really help immerse guests into the Wizarding World, as well as expanding upon some of its existing footprint and ideas, bringing for the first time truly interactive wands at the resort that was also incorporated into the former land, something that Universal would do again when it comes to the 2.0 version of it that opened alongside Epic Universe. However, breaking down this 1.0 version that Universal built with Diagon Alley, as well as expanding upon some of its existing offerings, whether it be more food and beverage offerings, as well as providing more merchandise and including interactive wands for the first time, allowing guests to truly perform magic within the lands themselves that was also retrofitted for the Hogsmeade Wizarding World section as well. And these add-on experiences were a great way to really help enhance the overall land and atmosphere to it, as if you didn't buy a wand, you would still have those great kinetic moments going on around you. However, if you did buy one, you get that great magical option that encourages you to go explore more of the Wizarding World and was a great add-on option that goes beyond just an additional Express Pass option when it came to how to make more money off of guests after they already buy their theme park ticket. In addition to this, was the addition of this land was another genius move on Universal's part to provide guests another fully immersive area of the world while also doing so in a way to encourage more sales at the resort, this time by encouraging more park hopper sales, as if you want to experience everything that the Wizarding World had to offer, you had to buy a park hopper ticket. This is because, in a first for the theme park industry, Universal connected two parks via one attraction. This was the Hogwarts Express, an extremely immersive offering allowing guests the opportunity to board the Hogwarts Express and actually use it like you would in real life, transporting themselves between the two fully immersive lands, as they could board in Hogsmeade and be departed at the London station at 9 3/4, as well as the other way around, providing an extremely unique experience in its own right, as well as easily reducing the costs and annoyances of traveling between the two parks, as you did not have to go all the way to the entrance and walk over and then go through the ticketing system once again, but rather just show your ticket once you're inside the park and travel between the two lands. As a result, when it comes to this land, it really is those extra upcharge experiences and being immersed inside the land that I prefer more than the actual ride itself, especially when you consider how much of an extra mile that Universal went through. As for the other main offering for this land, and its really only main actual attraction and ride, this would be Harry Potter and Escape from Gringotts, an extremely immersive roller coaster that combined some physical sets but mostly screen-based elements, in which guests got to travel through several roller coaster elements while being stopped along the way with several simulated scenes on screens. And while a fun and thrilling ride, it ultimately is not the best ride due to it mostly being a simulator-like attraction, but still a really good and fun step up from just a typical coaster. That said though, this isn't the type of ride where I will go to the park and be like, yeah, I must ride this on the visit, but rather, if it's a lower weight and I'm in the area, I may hop on, as I do still enjoy it. As a result, when it comes to this land, it really is those extra upcharge experiences and being immersed inside the land that I prefer more than the actual ride itself, and how much of an extra mile that Universal went through when it came to providing guests that magical experience to truly live inside of the world, as you don't need to just spend your Muggle currency inside the world, as if you want to, you can exchange your Muggle currency for the in-world credit, in which you can meet and interact with a talking goblin. Following this land's opening was another massive hit on Universal's hands. However, despite the massive success of the Diagon Alley and its other lands at Universal Orlando, from here, Universal took a step back when it came to those immersive lands at their resort, and rather pursued a series of several smaller mini lands or individual attractions to flesh out some more of the resorts as a whole. When it came to why Universal took this route and a pause on the immersive lands, it ultimately came down to the amount of space, time, and resources that it takes to build those fully immersive lands. In addition to this, there are several iconic properties that are big enough to have a presence inside of the park, but not big enough to require such a big and long-term investment that a land could. And as a result, there are several smaller attractions at the park that are still popular today, but done so on a smaller format. In addition to this also allows Universal more freedom and flexibility to provide more offerings in different properties into one land. For instance, the New York section of the Studios Park is home to several iconic but different areas and attractions, providing a mix between Jimmy Fallon, Revenge of the Mummy, Transformers, and soon-to-be Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift. Several different properties, but all work perfectly into this one more general land instead of one fully immersive land that bet it all on that one intellectual property. Sometimes though, those individual attractions and rides are a great way to help test the market and see just how popular an intellectual property can be inside of its parks, as well as be a great way to help flesh out some of the jumbled mess of land that could have developed around it. As what happened with Minion Mayhem, who saw the ride open in 2012 to great success as a way to quickly bring over the Minions into the park by retheming the existing similar ride theme to Jimmy Neutron. Down the road though, back in 2023, as the park saw a series of several different changes over the decade, felt like a very disorganized mess and not a clean and simple land that had an overall general theme and identity that the other lands at the park had. And as a result, to fix this, the Minion Mayhem ride was expanded upon, with its whole land taking over several of the existing infrastructure of the production central area of the park into Minion Land, a beautiful and aesthetic design of the park. While not the best as fully immersive, it was just immersive enough to really help incorporate the Minions some more into the parks, to sell some more of the merchandise, as well as replace older attractions like Shrek 4D with a newer Minion attraction to help alleviate some of the existing crowds and high wait times of Minion Mayhem. And while most of the time these existing infrastructure projects are not always the best when it comes to the long-term solution, considering the younger demographic of the kids and audience members of most of Minion Land, it works just enough to look thematically beautiful and overall give it a more sense of identity than its former predecessor, as well as be a great way to apply the same format to a variety of the different Universal parks to help provide that more cohesion to their individual lands, as seen with other parks like Hollywood and Japan, each receiving their own version of Minion Land, helping provide their own unique identity for that section of the park. Likewise, such a concept proved so popular that it was even developed as a spin-off of its own unique attractions and land to be built from the ground up in parks like Universal Studios Beijing, as well as Universal Studios Singapore, currently building their own Minion Land. Unfortunately though, not every evolution of a land space over time results in the best final quality to it, with some of the ending solutions and replacements often feeling temporary, with the prime example of this being DreamWorks Land, which replaced the Kids Zone section of the park. As well, the new land does still provide that great opportunities for kids to go and play out their heart's desire to characters that they will now recognize once again. The whole land felt kind of cheap and like a temporary replacement and band-aid while they go and fix up and finish Epic Universe, where a lot of the resources and money seems to be going at this time, to result in a fun land for kids, but not really the best land when it came to the overall theming, as well as the quality of it, to provide a great mix of attractions that both children and other members of the family could enjoy, but rather just a place that the kids go wild. And while it's needed inside of a park, I really wish Universal would have spent the time, money, and effort to really make it a perfect blend between the two and something that everyone could have enjoyed. For instance, they could have given it a substantial dark ride that really could help alleviate out the space. And maybe this will still happen down the road, as the Shrek area of the space does seem to be of the higher quality and standards that the rest of the resort typically gets, whereas other sections farther back feel really cheap and lacking. In addition to this area just have enough room to demolish sections of it and build a substantial ride. However, when it came to why this land feels so disjointed, cheap, and like a temporary fix, I think its main reason is the relocation of the former plans to replace Kids Zone. You see, in the initial plans, Universal was about to do what they have done with the Wizarding World, but this time with a brand new property, but also bring that same vast quality, money, and immersive options with bringing Super Nintendo World to their resort. With this time replacing Kids Zone with that land which would fit perfectly over the existing plot of land while providing a great balance for stuff that children and adults can both enjoy. Unfortunately though, these plans were ultimately scrapped, at least for bringing it to Universal Studios Florida, which drastically needs another major addition soon, and Universal does seem to be slowly remedying the problem with several future additions coming to that park, like a replacement for Rip Ride Rocket in the form of Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift, and them closing Supercharged in 2027 as well. Thankfully though, the plans to bring Super Nintendo World to the resort weren't scrapped entirely as a whole, but rather moved over to their brand new theme park to help anchor it in the form of Epic Universe, a vast theme park that was built from the ground up and contains several fully immersive lands that are built to the standards and quality as well as the scale of the former ones that are on the level of the Wizarding World, providing Universal the next step in themed entertainment and building one of their best theme parks. Here on this massive expansion to the resort, in addition to the nearby hotels being built, Epic Universe was a massive new theme park as well as backstage area to really help alleviate some of the existing office areas of the former parks to allow more space for future additions like lands coming to Universal Studios Florida to help provide more offerings in the future. As for the lands brought alongside with Epic Universe, these were Celestial Park, a celestial-inspired land, as well as beautiful gardens that help provide access into each of the fully immersive lands. The first of these worlds was Super Nintendo World, bringing worlds from several popular Mario characters to life and in a way that has never been done before, with several new technology and artificial reality being incorporated into it, blended with several impressive rides on their own right, each having their own unique themed sections and part of the land. The first of these rides was Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge, a unique blaster-style dark ride which would overlay physical sets with artificial reality. The next of which was a flat ride but was a beautiful scenic tour around the land with some smaller elements and show scenes, with this being Yoshi's Adventure, a great way to add some more kinetic energy to the land. A land that already has a vast amount of kinetic energy due to the vast amount of animatronics that make up the land, as well as several other moving elements like the clouds on Mount Beanpole. In addition to this, there's also Donkey Kong's Minecart Madness, a unique style roller coaster built exclusively for Universal, in which Universal would give guests the illusion of jumping over tracks via having fake tracks hidden by the actual track down below, with the vehicle being held up by this lift on the side of the actual roller coaster, providing a unique aspect to the park as well as another reason and draw for it. In addition to these attractions, there is also an upcharge attraction in the land as well, with these being the power-up bands, and areas in which guests can go and punch blocks around the land and provide and collect coins along their journey. In addition to this, they can also play several smaller mini games spread throughout it, building up to a mini boss battle attraction where they would face off against Bowser Jr., a great way to help immerse guests more into the land while also upcharging those guests and making more money off of them, but providing a great improvement to the former Wizarding World WADs, which were just one-off smaller experiences, providing much bigger mini games as well as a true exciting payoff towards the end. And while I have not had the chance to visit Epic Universe yet, this is just one of the several iconic lands within it that we'll go and break down further. But based off of what I have seen online, Super Nintendo World looks to be a great addition to the theme park space and Universal Orlando's lineup, a move that they will continue to improve upon in the future with a Pokemon Land coming to Universal Japan. Outside of these current offerings for Super Nintendo World, where the land really shines is its ability to be adapted, modified, and molded for the different resorts around the world, providing different iconic setups and ways for Universal to build out this land. For example, in Japan, when the land first debuted, it was mainly consisted of that Mario-inspired area, not having the Donkey Kong section of the land. However, that land was later built down the road as an expansion to it. Whereas in Orlando, it was all built from the start, and even in Orlando, they have room to grow with an expansion plot located next door where they could build out Super Nintendo World even farther if they wanted to. Not every park though is limited to such vast amounts of space, and as a result, the property and land had to be adapted for some of those situations, with Universal Studios Hollywood only consisting of the Bowser's Challenge ride and a mini land that is a much smaller version of Super Nintendo World, but still enjoyable, consisting of all the kinetic energy aspects and the power-up paid attraction, including the boss battle with Bowser Jr. As for the crowds for Super Nintendo World, it is definitely packed, and a great sign that the intellectual property is definitely paying off, as well as Universal's newer and more innovative takes on the land. No reason why Universal should license characters like this, as if they were not going to do this, they would not have access to some of these iconic and popular characters that are printing money. Furthermore, if Universal didn't pull the plug on this land, some other competitor may have swooped up and got those rights instead, in which Universal could lose out on some future market share, like Disney faced with Harry Potter. Speaking of Harry Potter, it was another massive and popular intellectual property that Universal chose to license some more, building a third land at the Orlando Resort based around the franchise. In this world, guests would immerse themselves in the older ages of the wizarding world of Paris, a beautiful and aesthetic land for guests to walk around and enjoy. In addition to this, there's also 2 attractions and space for a third one down the road that was ultimately scrapped from the initial plans, but is in early development to have it come to the resort in the end, as in demand for those existing attractions. Like the Ministry of Magic ride, Universal is quickly greenlighting a future ride so guests aren't waiting 4 hours to ride its main draw and e-ticket for the land. As for its current e-ticket, the Battle at the Ministry is a great, new, and innovative, similar style ride, but also a combination of a dark ride, where most of the scene is a dark ride, but you do get the simulated movement for it, kind of like an upgraded version of the Spider-Man and Transformers attractions. However, it's less screen heavy and a lot more physical sets and effects. As for the other current attraction in the land, guests will find a stage show in which you get to witness a circus and explore the worlds of the Fantastic Beasts, a property that now gets a presence in their Universal parks and expanding upon more of the offerings and characters in the wizarding world of Harry Potter. But while these are both impressive in their own right, where the land really shines here is its continual improvement to those upcharge experiences at the resort, providing a new, modern version of the interactive wands. As they still sell the older version, they now sell a slightly more expensive version as well that really provides more capabilities to it. It sells that you are casting spells in the land, with these newer wands having more abilities like being motion tracked for several different scenes and effects, having haptic effects so you could feel your wand vibrate and change the sense of power for that spell, as well as seeing the tip of the wand light up while you cast them and being able to track your performance and overall spells at the resort more with its own section of the Universal Orlando app like the power-up bands have over in Super Nintendo World, or both of which you're able to track and ultimately build up to smaller experiences. With the Wizarding World of Harry Potter having 2 quests, one in Islands of Adventure and the other in Diagon Alley, where guests can face off in a smaller, more elaborate section of a wand spell area, with the first of these being an area where you duel off against a dummy for a Dementor, really getting to practice and throw spells and watch the environment transform around you as it sees the impacts of those spells in real time. And the other which is where you get to fight off against a real Dementor over in Diagon Alley, getting to practice Patronus and see a really cool effect, utilizing a great use of several different layers to really help the Dementor and transform sections of it to really bring it to life as it can go forwards and backwards in more of a 3D space Not every ride though needs these added experiences and a lot of kinetic energy to really sell the vibe and effects of the land. With this being Darkmoor, a land inspired based around the classic Universal monsters, in which guests get to go and explore this old town in an overall creepy yet beautiful environment, topped off with some kinetic energy elements like a windmill that will catch fire, as well as a more modern take on the Forbidden Journey, utilizing the same ride system but in a way where its guests have a lot more visibility and eye movement to them, allowing them to really look around instead of being confined to that one area of view due to the layout of the ride vehicle. In addition to this, unlike Forbidden Journey, which had a heavy sections of screens used throughout the ride, this ride is mostly all physical, utilizing a great story with several practical effects and animatronics spread throughout, giving a fantastic physical dark ride to the iconic Universal monsters, bringing Universal's own intellectual property into the land in a way that is both nostalgic, new, and innovative. While this land is great, it is targeted at a more older demographic. And to help balance this out, Universal also spent the time to build another immersive land, but this time targeted at a more younger demographic of children. However, both of these lands could be joined by both demographics, especially with some more kid-based land of How to Train Your Dragon, providing a perfect mix for both the kids and adults to both enjoy. It is here at Isle of Berk where the land really shines, providing a vast layout and space that is only possible from a ground-up build of the land and is really hard to replicate when you have to deal with the existing infrastructure of the park. It is here in this vast land that Universal really got to tell those stories of their own property and bring it to life in a brand new way to help give guests the ability to go and live inside of it. It is here within this land that guests will not only be able to enjoy several iconic attractions that everyone can enjoy, but guests will also come face to face with several iconic areas of the franchise, as well as numerous moments of kinetic energy, including dragons spread all throughout the land, including flying above you, in a format that is so on and off test basis, but is in the plans for the longevity of the land and really comes to testament to just how far an immersive land can go. To help further sell the kinetic energy and livelihood of a land that really helps make it stand out and feel alive, unlike other lands like Galaxy's Edge, which lack it and help make that land feel dead as a result, Isle of Berk did a great way of providing several rides into the land that all have this kinetic energy aspects that can be seen from various points of the land. The main one here is Hiccup Swing Gliders, a thrilling family-style roller coaster in which guests get to zoom around Isle of Berk while also experiencing some unique show scenes to the ride itself, all of which can be seen from various points within the land. The next of these attractions is a boat-style ride in which guests are instructed to blast targets and aim points in which they compete against another group of guests in the park. In addition to the kinetic energy here on the water level, you will also see some more kinetic energy in the sky, in which guests get to see what it's like to fly in the sky and turn their vehicles within Dragon Racers Rally, a way in which they get to experience those customized aerobatics in the air in a highly themed environment, providing a great backdrop that is used for both the ride as well as the coaster. In addition to these rides, there is also an extremely impressive indoor show in which guests get to sit and take a break from the hot Florida sun while enjoying a really beautiful and immersive stage show that first debuted as part of a standalone experience and ride in Universal Studios Beijing, and was then adapted for the full-fledged land over in Orlando. In addition to this, there is also several popular and unique meet and greet experiences that are all a massive hit, like the Grinch was for its live action version at Grinchmas, except these are all done year-round on a much bigger level and budget, each having their own unique section of the park for guests to come up and interact with characters, with these being less of a typical meet and greet other than Toothless and Hiccup, as the other characters tend to roam around the land itself, which provides a great way to help add more of that kinetic energy, as well as giving the ability that they are actually living inside that land of the franchise instead of just all being put behind meet and greet queues. In addition to this, there is also an immersive playground for those younger guests to go explore and enjoy to really top off a perfect land that has vast skill and variety for everyone to find something to go enjoy, whether it be as a fan of the franchise or someone who just likes the adventure and Viking-like vibe of the land, as well as its several popular offerings. With that wraps up the intellectual property lands at Universal Orlando Resort. But what does the future look like for this resort, and how will it continue to evolve and grow after Epic Universe? Well, when it comes to immersive lands, we have seen our first glimpse of it and potentially the replacement for either the Lost Continent or the Simpsons, with the Simpsons contract expiring in 2028, a downside of some licensed properties within their park. And this being Pokemon, a brand new immersive land coming to Universal Studios Japan. This is really exciting when it comes to the future, as it shows that Universal is continuing to develop and implement such highly immersive lands into the parks, as they are not only paying off, but they are continuing to grow, evolve, and develop them. In addition to this, Universal has said that the land coming to Universal Studios Japan isn't just a one-off thing, but the first of several Pokemon-based attractions coming to the resorts around the world. Likewise, if we were to look at other new properties and lands coming to their other resorts around the world, like Universal Studios Beijing, they continue to be implementing several more of these iconic and immersive lands at the resorts, now including properties that are exclusive to those different areas and resorts, like Beijing having Kung Fu Panda, as well as including its own unique version of the Jurassic World rides, including a brand new dark ride that is a massive hit with guests, and another version of how great they have executed the Scoop Ride vehicle. In addition to this, Universal's future resort coming to Bedford over in the UK looks to contain several new and innovative immersive lands and properties exclusive to the resort, with some rumored offerings containing Back to the Future, Paddington, and even Lord of the Rings. But while the exact details of these future lands are unknown at the moment, one thing is certain is Universal's desire to continue to grow, learn, and innovate with these immersive lands and help provide that great guest experience for them to go enjoy and want to come back, all while pushing what themed entertainment can be. If you like this video, please hit subscribe so you don't miss out on some more future episodes and videos breaking down more of the iconic Universal lands, attractions, as well as other areas of the themed entertainment space. And if you like this video, consider checking out some of our other ones, including our previous podcast episodes, as well as a video series breaking down several iconic, unique, and beautiful rides at the resort, including a future one about Universal's Revenge of the Mummy. So stay subscribed so you don't miss it. Until then, I'll see you next time.